Hi, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of SuperNova Commencements. I'm your host, Kashi Sehgal. We're excited to have you, and we have a great show today. Hope the school year is going well for all of you guys, all the incoming students that are now college students, all the new. Going well for all of you guys, all the incoming students that are now college students, all the. We are getting some feedback. Okay. Not sure what's going on. This is the joy of live broadcasting. This is how you know we really do it live every week. Okay, so a little odd. I'm hearing myself every single time I open my mouth. It comes back to me. We are just going to keep going because we're not going to let this. Yeah, okay. So we're just going to keep going. And I'm going to figure out the audio issues as we go. I might have to plug in my headphones. But let's see. Okay. Anyways, this is real life. And you just got to roll with what life deals you. Welcome to working from home and school from home. This is how it works. Okay, let me bring our guest on screen. And let's welcome her. Jasmine Atherton. Hello. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you? Audio issues are an everyday norm now, working from home. I think you nailed that comment.
Okay, I'm going to let you talk to students and do your thing while I figure out this audio issue that I seem to be having. So I'm going to go find some headphones and I'll be back. So the floor is yours. Give us your opening statement.
Hi, everyone. So I'm in our home bar. So this is a sign behind me. I figured it was appropriate to sit here to celebrate either you're graduating or you're starting school. I think it's something worth celebrating. It's actually a fun sign. My husband made that for our wedding, and we now have it hanging, ironically, not in a bar. It's now our home office because we're working from home. But I'm Jasmine Atherton. I am so excited to be here today. I'm excited for all of you. I am currently the VP of Marketing at etuHOME, and I started that job 6 months ago, a solid 3, maybe 4 weeks before coronavirus became a common phrase. And, I am navigating working from home and starting at a new company all at once, which can be different and challenging, especially when it comes to learning about the company and also making friends at work, which I've always found in my career to be a really important part of working, is the people you work with. But before then, I can give you guys a little bit of background on my career and what I went to school for that got me to this point. So I went to the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. I graduated with a BBA in marketing from the Terry College of Business. And I didn't always know that I wanted to be in marketing. What I did know is that I grew up with a very business-minded family, but they were very business-minded in the numbers sense versus the creative side of things. My dad is a CPA. My mom's an accountant. My uncle owns his own accounting firm. So like the path, I guess, that if I was to have one that had been laid out for me was very much in the finance world or accounting world. And those are certainly 2 degrees within Terry that are awesome and I definitely took lots of finance classes and econ classes, but I always was gravitating more towards the creative side of business. So after my, I think, second year, I ultimately decided to go down that path, and I jumped into all my marketing classes and I loved them, and started taking advertising classes and fell more and more in love with it the longer I was in Terry, and ended up graduating what at this point feels like very many years ago. I was recently in Athens and loved walking around campus and kind of reminiscing on going between classes or laying around North Campus. So enjoy those years while you can, because by the time they're gone, you're gonna wish you were back in that place and with your friends all the time and whatnot. But so cherish every moment, even though it seems like there's no end in sight when you're in it. So I graduated, and I then came to Atlanta. So I grew up in Atlanta, so I kind of came back into the city and did a couple of internships, marketing internships, and that was the summer after I graduated. I did an internship, and my boyfriend, who's now my husband at the time, we saved up all our money. We both had internships. We saved all our money, and we went to Europe for a month. And we saved everything and went to Europe. And it's kind of cliche, like you go do the big Europe trip or you do your like year off. I didn't quite do that long of a stretch for a full year, but I so recommend taking a moment to really ease into working. I think you're gonna work for the rest of your life, for the most part, or a lot of us are. And take that time, have a goal. It doesn't have to be Europe, it doesn't have to be traveling even. Have that goal that you're working towards something. I think that's always really important, even if it's just, what are you going to do after your summer internship, or what are you going to do in 10 years? Like, what are you working towards? I think that's always something to drive passion and to get you excited. Of course, money is something. We all work to get money to pay for things. That's more obvious, but having something that's a little bit more, I don't know, tangible, or that kind of like lights your fire is really important. So that's what we did after that first kind of internship. And then we got back, and I really jumped into, finding a job. I worked at an ad agency, a marketing agency here in Atlanta for 4 years, and I learned so much being at a small company. This agency was about 20, maybe 30 people, and we all knew each other's role really well. We all knew all the different kind of functions of the business, because when you're that small, you really have to understand what everyone does, and that really helped me learn a lot about digital and marketing and social marketing, which was very early in its infancy at that point. Facebook had literally just launched. I'm probably dating myself by saying that, but it was very new, and brands didn't really know what to think of it. And I kind of had to figure it out as we went. The more and more it became commonplace for brands to have a Facebook page. And this was back when Facebook pages had tabs, and you would have different activations and promotions on your Facebook tab. Kashi's laughing because she totally knows exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, I think you're muted, Kashi.
Yeah, I remember all that. Absolutely. Yeah. Those were the days when it felt like it was easier in some sense.
Easier. There's so much now to consider across all the different channels and platforms for social, but kind of not to say that I made it up as I went along, but I was kind of building the car as we drove it at the agency. And I learned a ton about how to create social campaigns and how to think social first and really help big brands make sense of what social could be for them. I got a lot of exposure to a lot of really big brands here in Atlanta. We had, Coke was one of our clients, AT&T and Home Depot were our clients, and that was really shiny for someone who is, fresh out of school, working on big brands and big accounts. The the brands that you would read in case studies in marketing class. So that was really, really exciting for me to be a part of that. And, after 4 years, I kind of craved being on the brand side. So essentially, that means working at the big companies or at the small companies rather than the agency who's hired to help those brands. And I started to look around for a job, and I looked around here in Atlanta, wasn't quite finding what I was looking for. So I kind of opened up the scope a bit and started looking outside of Atlanta, across the country, and in New York, Chicago, San Francisco. And I reached out to my cousin who is in kind of the marketing space out in San Francisco, and got a couple contacts from him on different brands to look at or people to reach out to. And one of those brands happened to be Airbnb, which at the time they had only been around for about 6 years. They're about 12 now. I think they've been around for about 12 years. So they were small. They were less than 1,000 people. They took up just half a floor in a building. They were more so known for couch surfing than the big kind of travel brand that they are today. So I got an interview with them, and I was like, oh, I've heard of them. They seem cool. So I took the interview, and after that first interview, I knew I wanted that job. I knew I needed to work there. I was so inspired by what they stood for and their mission. I loved the position. It was where I wanted to grow more so into the marketing and the social space. And it just seemed like a really good culture fit. And back to that kind of idea of it's who you work with that's really important as well. And I could see myself there. So I put my mind to it, and I really thought, I'm going to make this happen. I will work there. So I finished that interview and kind of was waiting to hear back on what next steps were. And as I was waiting on that, I decided I need to make a case to them for why I should work there. So I started to pull together a lot of almost like a case study of what I could do for them in this very specific role. And I then got another round, the next interview. They flew me out to San Francisco. I did interviews there for like 2 days with 8 people, and it was grueling. It was a lot of work. It was not just the typical one interview and you get the job. It was pretty intense, and I was nervous, right? Like, think about going out to San Francisco. It's Silicon Valley. There's so many smart people out there. There's a lot of competition. So I was nervous. I didn't think I was going to get it. And I then was given a creative writing exercise and a social exercise. Like, they put you to work. So I think, if I could offer any advice to anyone who's looking to find a new job or go out and go into this hiring phase, interviewing phase, don't assume that you're going to get the job. I think you have to give them what they're asking for when it comes to the interview process or any sort of exercise that they want you to do, but think about what other value you can bring throughout that process.
Jasmine, let me just cut in for a second. So you're talking about the work that you put in, and all the tests, really, the hurdles that they put in front of you that you had to clear, the writing sample and all these things. But what is the work that you did? I know you did work outside of what they asked you for in the actual interviews. Can you talk about that process and how you came up with techniques and strategies to really put yourself at the top of the list, or at least in a place where they had to look at you?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that I did was I looked at the job description, and I really dissected it and kind of not read between the lines, but really saw what they were looking for. They were looking to elevate their social presence. They were looking to build up the team. They were looking to, grow from just having a Twitter account to using it strategically. And, one of the first things I thought to myself was, okay, if I actually get this job, what is one of the first things I would do in the first 30 days? And one of those things was an audit. So I would take an audit of all their social accounts, the pros and the cons, like almost like a SWOT analysis, the strengths and the opportunities. So I started to just put all that stuff down on paper. And I guess I'm a nerd. Like that's what I just like to do. So I started to like put it down on paper, and then I started to realize, hey, this is actually pretty compelling. I should put this in front of them. So I kind of packaged it up. I made it look nice. I put it into like a little couple slides, cleaned it up a bit, and I sent it to them as like a follow up after the interview. So that was one thing I did. The other thing I did was after each interview that I had, I sent a handwritten thank you note. I think that's really important. Doesn't have to be handwritten. It doesn't need to be mailed. I think that's a nice touch. One of the the one guy that I interviewed with, he still said to this day, I'm like one of the only people who had ever done that, and it stood out to him. So finding different ways to stand out, I think, is important in the process. And do your homework. You should know who you're going to interview with. Find them on LinkedIn. See what role they're in. See what roles they used to be in. Try to get a sense for how important it is to know what this person does. It's probably important if they're interviewing you, so try to understand their role and their function. That also makes for a really a more tailored conversation when you talk to someone, where you can actually like speak to the role that they're in or what roles they've been in before. Makes it a little bit more meaningful.
Yeah, and it also helps you ask them better questions, because inevitably something that they're going to ask you in the interview process is, what questions do you have for me? And you have to have something good, right? Something meaningful to ask about. And so even if it's their background as it relates to what they're doing, their perspective, that's such a great piece of advice. Jasmine, so because of all the tech issues at the beginning, I didn't really introduce you, but for everybody, sorry guys. Jasmine, we've been talking about Airbnb. She was the head of social at Airbnb for the Americas. It's a pretty big role. And you've been in social for so long. You were talking about that. And now you're running marketing as a whole at etuHOME. What trends are you seeing from the time you started back when Facebook had tabs and, all those like event promotion tabs and things like that to now? What trends are you seeing that really stand out to you as things that are meaningful going forward for the next couple of years, maybe 3 or so years?
That's a good question. I think what started as something where brands knew they needed to be on it, but they didn't quite know why. It's built into a place where you can drive sales, you can drive revenue, you can drive your business forward with social. And, I'm seeing more and more, smart ways to cultivate community, which I think is really important, in getting like-minded people to kind of come around your brand and talk about your brand, show off your brand. They're essentially a megaphone. They're the marketing channel for you. And social has created a way where the brand doesn't have to do all the talking. You just have to get everyone else to talk about your brand. And that tends to happen on social. So, thinking about social strategy now is not just about what do I post, what do I tweet, when do I tweet it, how do I post on Instagram Reels. It's also, how can I create something that becomes talk worthy? How can I create something that has talk value? And because again, they're the megaphone, not necessarily you. So that's kind of one trend that I've seen. The other one is more and more people have access to be creators. So, usually in the past, you would need big budgets to create videos and to make something stand out and create really good content. Now, I'm sure a lot of people can attest to this that are watching. If you have a TikTok account, you can make a really, really incredible video or even on YouTube. Oh my God, we're live right now.
Yes,
Imagine
we are.
we're 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 doing this with two computers and some headphones and internet. Going live before was this whole broadcast thing that was very specific to TV. The power of social and technology has made all of us into these creators and these creatives, even if we don't necessarily think of ourselves that way, we are. So the barrier to entry to do creative things, I think, is lowered because of all this technology at our fingertips.
Yeah. So even if you don't feel like you're an expert, none of us are experts, and you are. I'm not. But you know, it takes that just leaping in and putting up your first video and seeing what kind of reaction you get, and experimenting, because the barrier to entry, like you're saying, is so low. So you just have to rip off the Band-Aid, right?
Yep, just try it. You'll learn as you go. Build the car as you go.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Um, okay, so do you see a benefit right now? You've got a VP of marketing role at etuHOME. You are running all of marketing, but you really started in social. Is it better to be a generalist right now and know a little bit about a lot of things, or is it better to really focus? And I'm talking about at the beginning of your career. Is it better to focus and do one thing really well as it relates to social? It just feels like people have to wear so many hats right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's value in understanding the full picture and having and thinking like a generalist, but then being able to go really deep into something. Because I think in order to go deep into something successfully, you kind of have to know the whole puzzle and know where all the pieces go, even if you're not responsible for putting those pieces there. I think it's really important to understand the whole ecosystem. And that goes a bit back to how fortunate I was at the agency, because I got to learn what goes into building a website. I got to learn what goes into building a community and databases and like back end and front end, like understanding the ins and outs of marketing allowed me to see, wow, there's a huge opportunity in social. This is where I think more and more marketers are going to be spending their time. And it allowed me to do social well because I kind of understood the rest, everything around it. So not to say you have to go into a career that is very general, but I think it's important to understand even at a surface level everything else, because I think that will also help you to pick and decide what you're passionate about, and go into that in a deep way.
Yeah, it's giving you context for the expertise that you will bring or learn.
Yep, certainly.
So thinking about landscape today and all like the world of bots and voice assistants and AI, all the things that exist now as part of the social atmosphere online, how do we keep the human element or that humanity? How do we bring it back or make sure we don't lose it as we're moving forward in this social virtual world?
That's a great idea. I think the world of AI and the world of technology is making certain things easier for brands and companies and people to make space for meaningful connections and make time for things that need that human touch. So, if an example I can give with etuHOME is we're very in the space of digitizing our warehouse and making certain tasks a lot easier. Because if we do that, then that team can focus on other things that can also drive value. So we're able to do a lot more with with the same amount of team members or time. So I think it's more about well, we need AI, we need technology, we need all of this power, but I think we need it so that we can make time for, you know, building that community and doing, you know, things in person from a brand standpoint, like experiential marketing and ways where we actually bring people together. Although right now that's a little bit difficult and cumbersome with what's going on with COVID. And but I do see that in a post-COVID world. Although I don't know if there is that such a thing, or maybe like a not as intense
Fingers
COVID
crossed.
world.
Fingers crossed.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Where it's going to be like a boomerang, where people are going to really like go back to wanting to go to events and you know, go. I remember Nike, an example of Nike. They would do these run clubs where runners would just meet at a Nike location and they would do like a 5K run. And not to say that Nike was at the center of these people going on a run, but you may never have met these people or even maybe gone on that run if Nike hadn't brought you together for their little run events. I wish I remembered what they called them. That's just an example of how a brand can bring people together that I think is meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to tell if it's going to be a event bubble when we go back to, maybe it's not life as usual, but right now we're in a now normal. There will be a new normal. So we'll see. We have lots of questions coming in. So I want to start getting to some of these student questions.
Sure.
Okay, where to start? Okay, so Allie would like to know, what skills did you need to develop along your way?
So as I kind of grew in my career, you know, I started at Airbnb, no one reported to me. After a year, I had someone reported to me. And after 2 years and 3, and like on and on and on, now I have a whole team, a marketing team, a sales team who report to me. So, you know, managing, that was something I had to kind of learn along the way. I certainly took cues from managers I had that did things I loved, who did things that I would maybe have done differently, and had to kind of take it upon myself to build that skill. So, you know, I read a lot. I think have your Amazon cart always full of books that are geared in marketing, if that's the career you're going in, or whatever career, but also just, you know, self-improvement. There's a ton of them out there. So always try to stay on your toes with stuff like that. So managing. I think another one that that I personally, if I can be vulnerable here, is the art of patience. So with managing a team, learning to be patient and have an open ear. You know, being not on a team for a while in my different roles to going to being a part of a 200-person team, you kind of have to be super patient and willing to listen and be open to different ideas. So that was one thing I had to learn along the way. But yeah, good question from Allie.
Okay, that's a great advice. Mason would like to know, when was a time you felt like giving up, and why didn't you?
Oh, that's a great question.
Or like something challenging.
I mean, a big challenging moment to me was, you know, I was in San Francisco at Airbnb and I loved my job, but my husband and I knew we wanted to move back to Atlanta, I'm in Atlanta right now. And it was a hard decision to leave a job that I loved and to come back here to be in Atlanta. And I was, you know, it took a while for me to find the job that I wanted to move for. I didn't want to just leave and just come here and take kind of a job that I didn't love. I was so fortunate, I'm knocking on wood, that I found the role that I did at Delta Airlines, and it was on the marketing team. It was leading social and content. It was perfect. So don't give up if you know what you're looking for, because I think you might regret a decision that you make just because it's the easiest decision to make in the moment, or the fastest decision to make. So again, the art of patience.
Art of patience, something that I am continually working on. Kristen would like to know, so we talked about this a little bit, but is a marketing degree relevant anymore? Isn't most of it on the job training?
I would say if you're looking to go into marketing, I do think that I do take a lot of value in the degree that I got. I learned a lot of fundamentals, like I just used this phrase the other day, the 4 Ps, promotion, product, package, it's the fundamentals of marketing and business that I think, again, helped me think about the full picture of marketing. And while I did get super narrow into social, I think that full context is still really important. But college is not for everybody. It's definitely the more I hear more and more people who have not graduated and jump straight into their career in a very specific way. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think it's just making sure that you do have a breadth of knowledge and a breadth of experience that you can bring to the table when you do go looking for a job.
Damien would like to know, what is your favorite thing about social media?
Oh, my favorite thing about social media is the way that you can reach a lot of people at once and be able to understand and know if it's working. It's really easy to have a read on marketing and performance in social. And I think it's the human element, to go back to that kind of question, Kashi, about kind of making sure there's this human one-to-one moment interaction. It's not just a brand talking out into the world, it's the brand talking with the community, and it's the community talking about the brand. So it's so much more interactive and two-way than other marketing tactics and things you do, like a billboard. You have no idea if that billboard really worked. You might pretend like but it's so hard to measure things like that. Or even TV spots, or magazine ads, like all these more other traditional marketing things, is so much harder to put and understand quickly if it's working. On social, within 24 hours if you need to adjust something or pause it from a paid standpoint or put more budget behind it. So I like that you have a lot of information at your fingertips too.
Yeah. And being quarantined and physically distanced right now, nobody's seeing the billboards, right? You're not driving.
That's true. You're right.
There you go. Okay. Juanita would like to know, at what point did you feel like you had made it in your career?
Made it. Is that Juanita? I think I know Juanita. Hi, Juanita. What point did I think I made it? I don't know. I don't feel like I've made it. I think sometimes
You have, yeah.
I think to myself, I'm like, I don't know. Am I like an imposter? Is this really what I do? I don't know. I'm fortunate that I've found something that I really enjoy doing and that gets me excited when I get out of bed. I think that that's really important. Because if you're not thrilled and not excited when you walk in the door or log into Zoom or whatever now, I don't know. It's like you should take a look at what you're missing, or what's keeping you from feeling that way, because we should all be excited about what we do. We spend so much time at our jobs and thinking about our jobs and at the computer that if you're not so passionate or excited, then maybe you need a change. I don't think I've made it, but thank you, Juanita and Kashi.
Yeah, well, we'll agree to disagree, even though I'm not sure I like that expression. But okay, so Angelina wants to know, what is your favorite social platform?
Oh, I always get that question. It always changes. My answer always changes. I am one of those people who did not love TikTok before quarantine, and now I need to stop getting on TikTok because I spend too much time on there. It's a fascinating place where I see people being so creative and there's like no rules. I think like it's almost a place where anything goes. And the one thing about TikTok that I find fascinating is I get on there and I don't know anybody. Like the content that gets served to me, it's almost like it's truly an escape. Where you get on Instagram, you based on who you follow, you see their stories, you see photos from them, you kind of know what to expect. Whereas on TikTok, it's like this whole new world of people, and it's like you almost don't even have to worry about seeing someone you know. I don't know. It's like this fun little, although it's not very little anymore, this kind of fun escape. I also love laughing on there. I think people are very funny, and I love the comedic relief these days on there. So I've been enjoying TikTok.
Have you posted any dance videos?
I haven't posted any dance videos, but I have posted some fun backyard projects that my husband has been doing. He's very handy. Again, I told you guys he built that bar sign behind me, and he's been doing these backyard projects. I've been trying. I like use whenever I like am first and new to a platform, like I was with TikTok like 6 months ago now. I always like to post and like create my own content on there because I think that's the fastest way to learn how to use it. At first, TikTok was very unapproachable. I was like, I don't even know how to use it. Where do you swipe? What do you upload? It was all so confusing. But now I'm like, I get it because you kind of have to just go through the motions and, try it out and figure it all out as you go.
Yeah, going back to just jumping right in. Okay, I'm sure you get this question often. Daniel would like to know, how do you become an influencer and how do you create viral content?
Yes, good question. So I think the at the core, if there's with influencers, obviously they have influence, right? But I think it's about capturing attention. It's being capturing attention in the way that you have a certain point of view, or you have a very specific area that you focus on or love or have influence on or clout to talk about. And, it's about consistency. It's finding a way to consistently capture attention. And that can be on social, that can be on a podcast, that can be on these live streams. But it's finding a way to capture attention on something that you're really passionate about. Again, I see some influencers who go down these holes of things that just doesn't seem right. Like, why is this person talking about socks? Or, why is this person talking about, chainsaws? That was one thing my husband and I were looking at the other day, speaking of the house projects. And, it has to be authentic to you. Consistency is really important. So talk about that thing over and over and over to get people to know that that's kind of who you are and that's what you're passionate about and what you're talking about. To go into the second part of the question about virality, I get that question all the time. I've had bosses and CMOs tell me, let's make this campaign go viral. And it's like, well, it doesn't really work like that. You can't just make it go viral, but you can add all the right ingredients to, make it something that people watch and get excited about and share. I also think that going back to the kind of TikTok comment, I think the way that TikTok videos, some of them can just explode, I think has completely redefined how you can go viral. Because you could have someone overnight go from 2 views to 1 million views. And I think that's just powerful. I think it goes back to doing something that captures attention. If it's compelling enough, people will watch it. There isn't a formula to like concoct and create like a little witch's brew to make something go viral. Because if there was, I'd be doing it every day. But I hope that helped a little bit.
Yeah, like content creation, like you said, has really been democratized. Anybody can do it at any level on any platform. So pull together the right ingredients.
There you go.
Okay. Cole would like to know, What mistakes did you make early on in your career, and what would you have done differently?
Good question, Cole. What mistakes? I mean, I think, one is always pushing for what you want when it comes to pay and benefits. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. You will certainly get offers and see jobs that have certain salaries or benefits, like a certain number of days off, or equity if the company that you're working at offers equity. Don't be afraid to be open about what you're looking for and upfront about it. I think the best that can happen is that you get that, and the worst that could happen is that they stick with what they put down on paper, and that then becomes your decision on whether or not the job is compelling enough to take it if the salary isn't what you want. But always be open and ask for it, because no one else is going to ask for it for you. So it's up to you to do that. So always keep that top of mind. And was there a second part to that question?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, so what mistakes have you made early on in your career, and what would you have done differently?
Yeah, I think, I wish I had been more upfront and open earlier in my career with stuff like that. And, it's not always money. Sometimes it's number of days of PTO that you want, that I wish I had pushed for more, that I felt, was not as equal to other departments. So I think, the pay piece is always something that not that I've made a mistake every time I take a new job or a promotion or raise, but it definitely has happened before where I've gone, man, I should have asked for more. But
yeah, and PTO does equal pay in some way, right? I mean,
yep.
And mental sanity. Vacation time is important. Take it. Okay, so we have two Jasons asking two different questions. So let's go with our friend Jason first, Jason Domini. Actually, everybody's friends here, but we know Jason Domini. What trends in social do you see that you wish would go away?
Oh, good question, Jason. Thanks for joining, by the way. Trends that would just go away. That's a really good question. I don't know. I feel like giveaways have kind of become commonplace, where people just expect it, although they work, so that's hard to say for them to go completely away. I think one thing is this, there's a lot of times where different brands will take content and take it out of its context and claim it as their own and use it across different channels. And I hate that, because it's you're not giving attribution back to the person who created it. It's copyright. There's like copyright infringement happening, even though it's not as formalized as you would have with a brand. But I think even between people, you see content that people are claiming is their own on TikTok when it was created on Instagram 2 weeks before, or maybe it was on Reddit a month before, and now all of a sudden this person on Twitter is getting credit for it. I don't know. I haven't liked seeing that. I think I do like the breaking down the walls of all these different platforms and seeing things that pop up in different ways, but I hate that people try to claim content as their own. That's just not right.
Yeah, and what an easy way to connect with somebody else online if you give them credit and say, I saw this post by so-and-so, and it made me think about this. And so it inspired me to make this video, or inspired me to write this blog post, or here are my thoughts on what they said. It's a way to build community with somebody you don't know. So it's actually a good thing to give credit for many reasons. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so the other Jason, not other Jason, but different Jason, would like to know, what's the best piece of advice you have ever received?
So that's a great question. I am fortunate to be a part of Adweek's mentee program and mentorship program, and my mentor that I was connected to in the program is Kenny Mitchell. He's the CMO of Snapchat, and during one of our mentorship calls, his advice to me was, typically people ask you and say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And while that's really important to think about and to work towards, he said, reframe that question for yourself and say, how do you want your career to end? So at the end of your career, when you're retiring at, 65 years old, or I don't know, 55, maybe we could all retire early. Like, what are you doing at that point, and what are you looking back on your career that's going to make you so proud and so happy, and work towards that and use that as kind of your guide as you make career moves and decide whether or not to take a job, or you can assess what you're doing right now, like, is the role that I'm in now driving me towards that end goal? Because if it is, that's great, and if it's not, then that allows you to kind of look at, what are my options? Is my goal something that's realistic, or is the role that I'm in not right? It kind of helps you build that road for yourself if you think about where the road ends, as opposed to where am I putting the next bricks directly in front of me. So I thought that was really, really good. When he told me that, I was like, mind blown.
Mind blown. I was just about to say that.
Yes. So that's one thing for other Jason to think about.
Yeah. Well, Jasmine, there's so many more questions, but I feel like we're running out of time. So we'll just see if you'll come back at some point and answer some more student questions. But thank you so much for joining us today and joining our students. Do you have any closing thoughts for the students that are just starting this year, or even the high schoolers that might be watching?
Oh my gosh. I think, stay focused, have fun, don't let coronavirus or COVID get you down. We'll all be back at school, and you'll be back in campus soon enough, I hope. But use this as a time to think about these things and think about where that ending career moment is, and have fun. Don't let it all get too cumbersome or hard. Always remember to have fun.
Great advice. Okay, so that is all we have for today, everyone. We're out of time, but you can find all of our past shows on our website at supernovacommence.com. So go there, check out the past shows, check out who's coming up next and our schedule. We've got everything posted there, one-stop shop. You can find us anywhere on social. Just type SuperNova Commencements, hashtag SuperNova Commencements. And that's it. So students, hope you have a great week, and we'll see you here again next week. Remember, it's a blessing to be a blessing. Be kind as you go through your day today, and stay safe and healthy. See y'all next week.
Bye.